Hello, everybody. Welcome to Undefined. I am joined today by my friend Rocky. She's had a new album coming out, Rocky LeRoe, Tambourine. It comes out this Friday. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Bella?
I'm doing great. So, do you want to tell us a little bit about your new record? It's your first record. You've had a few
Yes.
singles and things, projects come out before this. You go to school at Belmont, you're Nashville-based. So, tell us your story.
I am in Nashville. I do folk rock music, very 70s inspired.
Mhm.
I've been putting out demos for a few years just to prove to the people in the city that I'm making moves. They think you're more legit if you have a Spotify profile.
Yes.
So I've been writing, and then I realized that while I'm here and while I go to school here, I have access to some of the most famous studios in the city, and I need to cut songs with a band and put out an album because that's what the artists that I'm inspired by do. So it's my turn. So I took I think four of the songs that are on the album were previously released, but they've been redone and mostly rewritten, and then four new ones that'll be on this project that comes out Friday.
Super exciting. So I want, and I like to do this with everybody that I have on the show. Walk me through your musical journey. Were you always interested in songwriting and playing guitar since you were a kid, or was it when you got older you decided that's what you want to do, and then when you got to Belmont you decided, oh, this is really what I want to do. I want to go in the songwriting, but I also want to cut and perform songs and do the whole local music thing.
My story's kind of funky because it was always performance, but I didn't know where that fell. So I did theater heavily when I was a kid and all through high school. And then I got to early high school and I thought maybe I wanted to do film. So I did broadcasting stuff and film stuff for a while. And then I got bored being behind a camera because that's where they stuck me. And I thought a pen wasn't enough to like, fully get my feelings and myself across. So I started doing stand-up comedy.
I
Uh,
like it.
I did
I
that
can
for
see that.
I did that for a year. And then I turned 18 and then it felt kind of weird and I didn't like that anytime I said that, it was immediately, then tell me a joke. So I was kind of in this weird purgatory between what do I do and having to choose a college. And I found the band Greta Van Fleet actually right around Valentine's Day, my senior year of high school, and I was like, this is what I want to do. And I'd written some songs when I was a kid. In my bedroom when I was sad, I wrote a lot of poems and I wrote a lot of songs, but it was just for myself. And I didn't even think that it was an option to like be famous and write songs. And so I kind of minute applied to Belmont, and then that's what I've been doing since.
Wow, that is so inspiring. So, like, what made you choose Nashville? Was it because of like Van Fleet and then that kind of down a music rabbit hole, or is it because it was like hub of everything? Like, what made you choose Belmont?
I had two schools left to choose to tour because I toured all over the country for like those different things. And my dad was like, all right, one more trip, one more school. And I have a good childhood friend that lives in Brentwood, which is just 15 minutes south. And
Yeah.
if I go to visit Belmont, I can see Georgia, two birds, one stone. And I had been to a lot of schools and been like, wow, this school's beautiful. This school's really cool. But none of them were like it. And I was like, that's probably a face thing, like false thing. You don't really reach a place and then feel it in your bones. And I was walking through campus in shin high rain. And I was like, if I don't get into this university, I'm never going to do anything ever. And I got in. Thank God.
Wow. So, yeah, it was meant to be. So, I am really excited to talk to you about your new album. It's called Tambourine. And so, tell me through the process. What studio did you record in? How did you decide on those nine songs? And then, kind of sonically, because you say folk rock, but a lot of the music that I cover here, I can hear bits and pieces of all different things. I can hear one of the songs, like the band. I feel like that's very like bluegrass. It kind of gives me Nickel Creek mandolin vibes, and I know you love them. So I was listening to that today. And then you have the more rock based, and then you have more singer-songwriter. So walk us through that and that whole process and how was it for you?
When we started cutting, I knew the first song that I needed to release was In the Quiet because that's the song I get asked about the most.
Yes.
And it's very special to me. It's got roots in my storytelling,
Mhm.
and it's the first song that I felt like people really understood me through. So when we were talking about cutting it, there's a studio that Belmont's linked to. It's Columbia Studio A. Bob Dylan cut there. Um,
Wow.
and so it's just a big open room. So we all sat in a big old circle. I had a violin, upright bass, acoustic guitar. My best friend sang BGVs on it, and cajon and mandolin. And we all sat in a big circle with the lights off. And ran through it live. So most of the songs are live band tracking, and it just felt right. We did that one. We did both the singles in the same night in the same format.
Uh-huh.
And then we did a couple other Belmont studios for the other tracks. We did some weird, funky setups for how we recorded everything because a lot of my instrumentation is bluegrass instrumentation or folk
Yes.
instrument. I just think it's really cool when you take woody sounding instruments and make them a different genre than they were designed for.
Yes.
I love Nickel Creek and I love Jason
Yes.
and I love the 400 unit. I like how he makes Americana music rock somehow.
Yes.
I try to do that in what I do as much as I can.
Yes, I definitely hear that for sure.
It's neat and it's cool how I think the energy is better when we can see each other and really be in this presence and make the space live rather than sending the drummer, sending the bassist in one at a time. I think it makes everything exciting and you'll never have the same pass twice, which does make post editing stuff really difficult,
Uh-huh.
but it feels better because it's like, oh, this was a moment that we captured, not just
Yeah.
a feeling.
But because you're also a live band too, so you play live all the time, so it's just already gives the listener that idea of, oh, this is our vibe. And then when you play live, it's also as a musician too. You all already have that experience of, oh, we ran through this together, so we don't have to teach each other all of this from the ground up after we were in the studio. We have to go play a gig. And I think, especially in this modern music landscape, I feel like the live performance sound is very popular and
Yeah.
accepted. And I think it flows really well, especially like you said with that rock and roll style, the wood instruments, you can just go in and do that. So how is it like performing these songs live? And have you been playing them live before the album came out? And have you kind of
Yeah,
gone through evolutions as you've played them live? Like, have
I
you?
have. Red Rocks is the third track on the record, and
In the canyon as a man goes on his way. The man says that red rocks, so I'm told, the nights grow cold. That red rocks, so they say.
that
Uh,
was the first song that I wrote that I felt like was any good. And it was the first song I'd ever played with anybody else ever playing on it. We were literally
uh,
sitting in the basement of a dorm, and my friend played guitar with me, and I was like, "This is crazy!" And we cut that song two different times for this record. And the first session, it just didn't feel right. It wasn't fitting in the pocket the way I wanted, and I was still so new to recording with a band that I didn't know how to convey conversationally what I needed. So we scrapped the first session. But that just meant when we went back in, I knew better how to communicate with the musicians and what kind of energy to bring into the studio, which is really important. I didn't realize how important my job is in the studio as the writer and as an energy in the room. It taught me a lot. And by the first session compared to the last one, I'm a completely different musician entirely, which I'm so grateful that I could go in so new so I could get that experience firsthand.
wow, that's so inspiring. You're the leader, but you're also like the vibe curator because you're not cutting it up separately. So you have all these people and you have to, this is the energy that we want to go. And it seems like you did a great job in that direction.
Yeah, and it's fun because we do a lot of live stuff, and the
Mhm.
musicians that I play with that are more in the band, because I don't have a set, this is the drummer, this is the,
I was going to ask about
people,
that.
I have two people that are pretty consistent and committed roughly to my projects. And a lot of the times we pull up on stage and you just let them rip and jam for a little while.
Uh-huh.
So when you're putting it into finite numbers, it's kind of rough to be like, and it's going to be interesting because I don't play with the guitarist that there's three different electric guitarists across the project. So I'm curious if after people are listening to the project, if they're going to expect those same solos and those same parts here on, because that's going to be an interesting thing to instruct musicians going forward.
And that kind of leads me to my next question. So you have these songs you're playing live and you have a rotation. So what are your hopes for these songs once you take them on the road? Do you have a set idea of how they're going to sound, or are you open to things kind of becoming more experimental? Because we talk like we're both really big into Jason Isbell and the 400 unit. We've also talked about Billy Strings and even things like Nickel Creek. A lot of the music that you listen to is, and even stuff with the Greta Van Fleet, they do like to play a whole kind of different thing when it is live. Are you more inclined to that, or do you want to replicate that studio sound?
I think the vibe that I've always brought is that it's gonna be different. I will place like right now I've got those eight tunes and then there's a few others that are mine that I'll throw into set lists. But it's really just been playing them live to kink out how I want them to sound permanently in the studio versions. Um, but I'm still experimenting with how I can consistently and always keep those songs changing.
Uh-huh.
For my show this Friday, we're gonna do the first half of the set with one like bluegrass style microphone and
Ooh.
everybody in the band holding their instruments up around the mic, which is different than normally doing inputs and DIs and
Uh-huh.
spreading out and screaming and running around.
It's more
So
like Randall Opry style, like how they would all
yeah,
gather around the
exactly what we're
circle.
doing.
Oh, that's so exciting. And so
Yeah.
where is the show? So I'm hopefully I can put this out Thursday or Friday. Where are you having the show and what can we expect?
Yeah, this show's at the Bowery Vault in East Nashville. It's a smaller spot, only fits 50
Uh,
people. But I figured like I wanted to make it a party
mhm.
end show because all of these shows that I host and headline, I'm always last and I have to be keeping all the ducks in a row and I can never really enjoy the company of people. So this time I'm coming first. I'm playing first, and we're gonna play through the project and do two covers of songs that I used heavily in reference for the record. Not the ones that's like the closest, because I figured if I used my
Mhm.
like the song I streamlined my whole album to was Gold Dust Woman by Fleetwood Mac.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say it also gives me Fleetwood Mac vibes.
Yeah.
Just
So I
even
didn't want
down,
to
you could be
like
very like Stevie Fleetwood. Yeah.
yeah. So I didn't want to like play that song and everybody be like, that's
Mhm.
where she got it. But we're gonna do a couple tunes that are derivative, like inspiring my project's derivative of, and then sell my new merch that I just got printed and enjoy the company. And then my good friend Billy Bellino is gonna be supporting and he'll be playing after I play.
Nice. And will the merch be like at the show only, or will you have like an online thing later, or?
I'm rocking it in person for a little while until I see demand outside of local people, you know?
That's
I'm not
exciting.
mailing stuff until people want me to mail it.
Yeah, well, I feel like you can get to this level because you provide such an exciting, like a fresh take on this style of music. This kind of older style music, like the bluegrass, the folk, the Fleetwood Mac, and so I really think that this album is going to be great for you, and I'm so excited. And another thing that I wanted to talk about is like not only like we were talking like you're the vibe curator and you have this whole thing with your music, but your visuals, like you have an awesome like Instagram presence and your album covers and like your photo shoots, like you're out in the farm or in like a little airstream. Like what was your inspirations for that, and how important is that for you as well to have those visual components to your music?
I got really lucky in the gene pool because my mother's a professional photographer.
Oh wow, that's awesome. Yeah.
So a lot of these pictures that I've been posting and using for the cover art have come from a session we did last summer at my cousin's farm. Um, and I'm pulling a lot of Daisy Jones and the Six stuff because
I
it's
was
like
thinking, yeah.
it's really hard unless you have the vintage equipment to make stuff really seem vintage. So I think Daisy Jones did a good job of like replicating vintage aesthetic and energy without with modern stuff. So a lot of that stuff is inspired by that. So like yeah, I put the vintage hippie van behind me and then wear my normal clothes.
I love that though. I love it. I think it's a good like blend, and especially like I feel like it describes the music too because it has those vintage vibes, but it also feels modern. It doesn't feel like it's so like derivative of past
Mhm.
music. It feels fresh, and so I feel like the pictures do a good job of kind of setting the scene.
Yeah, I try. I'm still figuring out what parts of what I'm presenting are the things I want to like latch onto and cling to. I think like color schemes, like I want to know what kind of colors people associate me and my sound with.
Yeah,
I think the merch will help kind of define that because I was thinking I feel brown and gold and
yeah,
orange, green, and blue. So
yeah.
I'm trying to like lean into that moving forward.
I definitely see that too. That's the kind of vibes I think of when I think of Rocky. So I think that that's perfect. So you talked about Red Rocks, and then we talked about the band, and we talked about In the Quiet. Are there any other songs on the record? I mean, you had the single Joshua Tree, which is great. I played it on the show. Other songs that really stood out to you of this project, maybe it just surprised you in the way it came about, or if it was just really fun to record, or if it meant a lot to you. Is there anything else that you want to highlight as we're getting close to the album releasing?
All of those songs are really special to me. The first and last tracks are co-writes with my good friend Zarita Angel, who's just a crazy cool Christian folk rock artist in Nashville as well.
Oh,
It's really cool that I could use two of our projects to like, put
yeah.
the project together. My song Bending Backwards, that's track 4.
Hmm.
I wrote that in like just in my bedroom. I feel like sometimes I lose touch of like I'm allowed to do what I did before I decided to do this for my job. I can still
Uh-huh.
go to my bedroom and write a song for me. And that was one of those songs. And I used to I still do. I write a lot of my songs to communicate with a dear friend of mine. And
Oh.
that was one of those songs. I feel it came from a really tired place um last winter, and I was just trying to say like I feel like the world is trying to work towards me. Why aren't you compromising yourself for me? And I wrote that song in that mindset, and I wrote that what, a year and a half ago, and we cut it
Wow.
this past fall, and then we kind of put it on the back burner because we had other things to record, and so it kind of got lost until I started getting mixes for it in mid-March. And my producer, Paige, sent it to me,
Mm.
and I was driving, and she played it, and they added harmonies when I wasn't in the studio, so I hadn't heard them, and I had to pull the car over and cry.
Oh.
I was like, this is so what I wanted it to be, and it kind of hurts because I know people are going to relate to it, and I wish they didn't because it's just such an
Uh-huh.
achy feeling, but I feel like it captures the feeling that I felt writing it so well, and that was a really cool full circle thing for me.
Yeah, well, I think that's important that too, like you said, like, people are gonna relate to it. It hurts, but I feel like that's what some of the best music comes from is like, when we are talking about things that maybe like, it's not great that we're feeling or like those complicated feelings, especially with like friendships or relationships. Like life is complicated. So if you can like narrow down like that story and then find a way where it can connect to other people, I think that's so inspiring and it's so powerful. And that's so awesome that your friends got the vision of that.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, this whole project stems from, it's not necessarily a concept album. It's a concept album and the fact of like I call it Tambourine because I feel like that is my way of leading things. That is my way of having control and having um just some kind of context within context. And the whole project is streamlined around one storyline in my life. And it's interesting to see how my life changes alongside the production of the project. Um, and it's exciting that I get to share it with the people that the record's about, but that's a
Mhm.
weird thing to experience.
Yeah.
I can't believe that Jason Isbell did this with his wife. I understand why that was so difficult to navigate because I am not married, but I'm struggling with the emotions that are in
Yeah.
songs.
And you hear all the
Heavy.
time too, like, when you're so into music, you hear like, singers joke about like, oh no, I hope like my friend or my ex or whatever, like doesn't know that the song's about them or like their family's asking like who this is about and you always think, oh, that's funny. And now you're in that situation like, oh gosh, how do people do it? Like,
No, and it's like my songs aren't even that specific. I think the most specific I ever get in describing the person is describing my bedroom that
uh-huh.
it was in. But I mean, I wish I could have had the bravery to be like brown hair, red eyes. Like, I'm not even
Uh-huh.
doing that. How do people know?
Yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
Whatever.
Well,
Whatever.
at least
The fans have to calm down.
yeah, they're interpreting your lyrics. I think that's probably the most important thing as an artist too, is like people are actually listening. They're not just like passive. So
It's
that's
crazy.
cool.
I'm very honored that people are finally like paying attention. And this is cool too because
Uh,
they can slow down. And it's not just like a passive thing in a show where you just hear the song and then it's the next one or the
yeah.
night you forget it. The last show I played a couple of weeks ago was the first time people had ever sung along to my songs with me.
Oh, wow. That
Ooh,
is so cool.
that was so neat.
And I also wanted to talk about, this is related to everything. You played the Bluebird recently, which is a huge deal for musicians in Nashville because it's like kind of a roundtable thing at the Bluebird Cafe, which is iconic. So many awesome people have played there. And I wanted to ask you about your experience with that and did that inspire you, especially like now that you're at the end of making the record's about to come out and then you got to do that. How was that?
It was a crazy, it was a crazy experience. I don't do a lot of open mic style things really right now, or I haven't since I started playing in Nashville, which I say that like I've been doing that for years. I've only been playing live in Nashville for like two. Um,
Wow.
but
You talk like you're a pro
I
though.
know, I don't know why I do that. I
Good,
feel like
good,
I've
yeah.
crammed so much experience in 2 years that I have a little bit of validity in what I say. But that's
Yeah.
also because I've worked my butt off to
Uh-huh.
have these opportunities. Bluebird was crazy. I have not played to a room of such tentative listeners before. It was full, like you could not see the chairs that people were sitting in. It was just faces, all looking at you, quiet listening. Um, and I was so scared. Me and my little guitar up there. And I don't remember what I said before. I think I said something like, "Who's a songwriter in here?" Yeah, that makes sense. Uh, and then I sang in the quiet, and I think it went over really well. I do want to go back maybe next week if I can, hop on fast enough
Oh
and
yeah.
be like, "Hi," and do a rock song. I think I realized after the whole night that I should do something that isn't singer-songwriter because that's what most of the performers do.
Yeah, spice it up a little bit.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
you gave him the typical singer-songwriter. That was the first impression. Now that you've been there before, you can rock out a little bit. We were talking about songwriting a lot. What's your process like? I also like to ask that. I mean, are you constantly like jotting down things? Or because you do it in your school? Like, I'm sure you have like assignments where you have to kind of exercise, like write a song for this or write a song for that.
Mhm.
But for your personal projects, how does that come about for you?
Um, a lot of the songs that I've put out were just for me. I think I've only put out two songs that were from school. Tug of War.
Yeah.
Tug of War is a song I wrote for class. My
Uh-huh.
professor
That's a
did
good one.
not like it. He was like, this sounds like Zeppelin." And I was like, "Really?" And he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, what do you mean comparing me to Zeppelin with like a snooty face? Zeppelin?
Yeah, exactly. That's the vibe you want to go for.
I was like, "That's some of the coolest music ever. Why
Uh-huh.
would that not be a dope thing to be similar to?" But when it's not that, I write a lot of poetry
Yeah, I was gonna ask you
also,
because you mentioned that.
and I journal a lot too. I just sometimes my creative process, because I've also done so many different things in the entertainment and creative thing, I can't always express things immediately in song, and some
Yeah.
feelings just don't translate to songs for me for
Mhm.
myself. I
Uh-huh.
can be put in a room with somebody else and get some stuff out that they can take. Right now, I've been in a bit of a writing drought, but I think it's because I've been so heavy and focused on this stuff, on the old stuff. But I'm looking forward to like, not closing the chapter of Tambourine, but closing the process of creating it so I can start thinking of the next thing. I'm already starting to think about the next thing,
Exciting.
but I feel like I don't work very well creatively in my music when there's a high expectation of me.
I can I don't do music, but I do a lot of creative things, and I feel like I don't get in the zone unless I have some downtime or I'm not like when something's not expected. Then that's like when you least expect it, whether it's at night when you're trying to go to bed or you're going to the grocery store. Oh wait, now I want to do a thing. I need to get my
Yeah.
notebook.
Right now,
Finally.
I'm in a stage of writing haiku style things and doing little, brief little things.
Uh-huh.
But that's for my heart, not my audience.
And I think that's good though. It's a good exercise too, because even though you say you're not really working on anything, you're still using that part of your brain and still you're spending time with these old songs, getting ready to put them out into the world. So I'm sure that's taken a lot. But it seems like you're still in tune with playing live shows and just writing things down. So when it is time, I'm sure it's gonna strike.
I hope.
Yes. So another question that I like to ask people, what really inspires your music? I know we talked a little bit about the Zeppelin and Jade Nickelcraig, all that kind of stuff, but is there anything else? And have you seen as you've grown, as you spent more time in Nashville, you've been doing this for 2 years, have you had a change of influences and things that you're gravitated towards the more you're into it?
When I came to Belmont, and it was like all Greta was my whole thing.
Mm.
That everything I listened to was Greta, and then it was a bunch of late 70s rock, like Rush and
Oh,
Bowie
Rush.
and that stuff. I loved the idea of a stage persona and like, being somebody completely different on stage and being really theatrical and cinematic and having a huge streamlined story throughout every project that I do my whole life. And
Uh-huh.
then I lived more life and was like,
Uh-huh.
I can't do that. I am not able to do that. So I've been able to take those inspirations of that music and use that rather than a thing I want to show and be as something that like motivates me and inspires me behind everything that everybody sees.
Mhm.
That's the music I refuel with. But when I'm referencing stuff, I've really grown to love the early 60s folk scene.
Yeah.
Woodstock has been a
Yeah.
huge inspiration to me. Just the
Mhm.
thought of bringing writing music that makes people want to be together and wants people
Uh-huh.
to be like present, and make them feel something. And I try to keep pretty modern terms out of my songs, so they're a
Yeah.
little bit more timeless than some other music that I hear around me. Just
Uh-huh.
because those things fade, and at the end of the day, it's like it's about you and me and our feet on the ground. So I'm trying to do that. But as for the sonic stuff, um, my best friend plays violin, and that was an
Wow.
instrument I've always been fascinated by, but I can't play it. So how do you
Uh-huh.
really, know that you want that? And we started jamming when I was a freshman, and then I've added him to the band, and that just brings a whole other side to my sound because it's like that violin can be violin or it's fiddle, and
Uh-huh.
it changes the energy heavily, like between him playing fiddle on a tambourine, like the closing track of the record,
Uh-huh.
or Silver Spoon, just the way that
Hmm.
he goes at it changes the profile. And same with like just experimenting with instruments and what they do,
Yeah.
electric and upright bass, like how that changes.
Yeah, the upright bass is really cool too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a cool instrument. I am not strong enough to.
Yeah, I have such a bad back. I was thinking like if I could play an instrument, I probably could like teach myself like the regular electric bass, but the upright bass, I would be toast.
Those fretless instruments, like
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know how your muscles can remember that.
Yeah, and even the people that and it's not like you have like the cello, like where you can just sit and do that was
Yeah.
like it's crazy. Like I've seen a couple orchestras or like when I was in undergrad, I had some friends that did choir or they had like ensemble and I'm like sitting there watching them like, "Oh my gosh, this is
Yeah.
crazy. How's your back not sore?"
It's really insane. And I tease Rocco a lot, just about everything because his instrument is very expensive and very
Mhm.
nice. So it doesn't have an input, so you can't like plug it in. So you have to like
Yeah.
put a little microphone out,
Yeah.
and then he has to stay put.
Yeah.
And we did a bunch of class gigs for me last spring where I'd go to my commercial voice class and we'd perform. And my teacher was like, Rocky, you and your guitars get along really well, but I feel like you're leaving Rocco in the dark. I was like, I think it's just because all the time he's stuck
Yeah,
standing.
he's stuck. He needs like even though it's expensive, he needs the
Yeah.
plug-in, the
I feel
input.
like
Yeah.
somebody needs to walk around like
Yeah, yeah, well, you
like,
need a tech that just holds the
yeah,
microphone to the instrument the entire
yeah,
time.
yeah. Would you mind
Yeah, like
walking
you know
around
how
following him?
yeah on TV shows where they have the boom mic when they're recording, you just need a boom mic on the
Stop
on the
moving. Same problem all
yeah
over again.
the
Yeah.
guy with the headset with the microphone just following him around.
Tune that instrument again.
Oh, that's awesome. And so, the whole time we've been talking about this, it's clear that it's not just you, like other people, whether it's just like, people that you've gone to in classes or in passing or friends, like collaboration is so important to you. From your perspective, how do you think it affects your work and how have you been using it as you kind of progress as you're booking more gigs, you put the album out? How vital is that to you and what you do?
Oh, it means the world to me. I moved out of where I lived because I wanted to be around people that were driven, that love what they do, and that are like that want to get better because all these people that I'm performing with on this project and that worked on the back end and that did the promo stuff, like all these people, the artists,
Uh-huh.
um, it's just important to me that they like the project, that they're
Uh-huh.
like inspired by the project, that they're good people,
Mhm.
and that they're like excited by what they do.
Mhm.
Everybody came to these sessions with a great attitude and played well
Mhm.
and has come to support me at the celebration, like the private things that we do to celebrate the releases. And it's really lovely that we're friends first. and then coworkers second. And it just means that the project is the manifestation of a year of hard work, but a year of like getting to know people better. And I'm really happy that it gets to like put us all of our names together, you know, for the next thing. But we all did one thing together. Oh, look what he's doing now. He was on my project. Oh, look what she's doing now. She was on my project. I was on her project. It's so cool.
I think that is so cool. And I feel like almost at times, especially in like places like Nashville, it can almost be lost like how important it is to have those relationships with people because like, you know, you can have people come and go, but well, when you're all genuinely invested in the project, I feel like that shows, and especially like with the live band too, you know, you can always tell the people that are just phoning it in or they're just there and they're not really vibing. So I think that is so cool, especially with how young you are and you're still in college, you're able to have this group and really like have it shine and work great. So I think that's super inspiring. And I'm so excited for the album, for everybody else to hear the album. It's really good. I think, do you have anything else that you want to highlight? Anything else that I left out that you want to talk about?
I don't know. I think it's about just past half an hour long. I think it's a good little driving project. I feel like I've kind of alluded to this being a good road trip project.
Yes.
But I wrote it as myself, so anything that is related to, like that's so wonderful that people are finding themselves in something somebody else says. So I'm appreciative that you're giving me the time to talk about it, and you've given your ear to it, and I'm excited at the prospect of more people that are fans of you and your stuff can go through it.
Yes, so I'm very excited. So Rocky LeRoe Music is the Instagram. All the information on the YouTube will be down below, and I'm so happy that I got to talk to you. I'm so excited for everybody to hear this great music. Thank you so much.
But all things must come the morning, all is well. The night came and went, but you are here and you are just overlooking the bedroom covered in you and me, thinking, keep me here with my lady, please. In the quiet, I can see you sitting at the dining room table. One glass of wine, I see it all of the time. In the quiet, I can hear you call my name. In the quiet, you called me in the quiet. And I see shadows dance around the room, and coffee spilled, and crooked moons, and the faint smell of citrus and jade. I feel static, feel the quiet AC, baby's breath and dinner shared after all the love we've made. In the quiet, I can see